Hi, folks. I'm Jamie Hiles.
I'm Lydia Judy.
And I'm Derek Lemaster.
And this is Scream Bloody Movies, the podcast where we discuss horror movie news and discuss a new movie each and every week and get our fuck on.
Wait, what?
We have never done that on this podcast.
We have not. But the podcast is still young.
It is. It could evolve into whatever we want it to be.
This is episode 11, right? Episode 11. So
what are we talking about right now?
I don't know. But how are you guys doing today?
We're talking about some quackery over here.
Oh my god!
He went straight for it.
He didn't even wait. He didn't even give it time to breathe.
The real quagmire.
That's what I got.
Dolphin? What is that?
Dolphin farts.
Dolphin farts. Please tell me that it tastes like cotton candy.
No, it doesn't.
That's a miss.
It tastes like delicious beer.
I got some Sun King Orange Vanilla. They're not sponsoring the podcast, but good stuff. Joe Bob says, check it out. So, guys, we have no time to waste. Mainly because we're starting this podcast so late. But really, we have some horror news. There wasn't a lot of new news today. There was some, but not as much as we usually have. So let's get right into it here and start with some news that almost was. Are you guys ready for this?
Sure. Shoot.
Okay, so apparently, this is crazy. There was a sequel to The Crow that was attempted to be made, right? This movie was intended to be the fourth theatrical installment of the Crow franchise called The Crow Lazarus. And it would have starred rappers DMX and Eminem. So just based off that log line, what do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about this? When you think of the Crow,
I could go without that.
I only have one question. How far in development did this get? Did someone just pitch it at an idea? Be like, hey, man, what about this?
There's a script. It says here, joining us to discuss the project is screenwriter James Gibson, who discusses how this sequel came about, what its story would have entailed, and why it ultimately didn't take flight. Probably didn't take flight because it was DMX versus Eminem in The Crow.
That would have been some real quality cinema.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about where the Crow franchise was at this point in time. We were we had the original Crow, which is a Stone Cold classic.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
Then we had Stairway to Heaven, right? Isn't that the sequel with Vincent Perez? Or Crow's Salvation?
No, City of Angels.
City of Angels, that's right. Vincent Perez was in City of Angels.
The Stairway to Heaven was the
TV series.
TV series, yeah.
And then they had the third movie with
Edward Furlong. And David Boreanaz.
Yes.
That was a real low of his career.
That was a real low of everyone's career that was in that movie because it was not good.
He's like, guys, you got to get me out of here. What's next? We got this show called Buffy. I'm sure this was after Buffy.
I am 100% sure it was after Buffy. But, so, I mean, I guess it was in this transitional period. So they could have tried something new, and this was in the 2000s. I mean, it was 2005. So, I mean, they were huge in 2007, 2008 when this would have been made, but it would have not fared very well, I do not think.
I agree with that assessment.
So here's Alessandro put it to me. He said, Jim, we really want to do a hip-hop Crow. Can you come up with ideas for that? And he said, yeah, I'll come in.
It's like, I don't have anything else going on. I might as well, throw my hand in that hat.
Lydia, you don't seem to be very thrilled with this idea at all.
Yeah, I think it sounds really weird.
It's a nice way to say terrible.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would be good for, for the right crowd, right audience, I guess. It could be, it could be another cult classic. But off, me just hearing it right now, I'm like, I don't really want to watch that.
It's a hard pass, right? Hard pass.
Yeah.
That's not even a hard pass. That's an easy one.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, Derek, are you a dad? I forgot.
I am.
All right, guys. So for you video gamers out there, Dead by Daylight is bringing in Pinhead as a new character. Did you guys see this? So Pinhead is going to be the new playable killer for Dead by Daylight, which is a survival horror game.
Well, I've never played this. Is this like the Friday the 13th, but
Kind of.
expanded to other characters other than Jason?
Yes. One person is the killer. You have to survive the time, and it's with each. Basically, it's in each setting of each world, depending upon who the killer is. So there's a Freddy version, there's a Michael Myers version, and now there's a Pinhead version.
All right, I'm definitely going to have to play this. What was this called?
Dead by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight. I'm going to mark that down.
We'll get it, and we'll all play it as a team. What do you think?
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
I think it'll be fun. So, Lydia, you'll like this. There's a new documentary coming out called Boris Karloff, the Man Behind the Monster. It comes out next month in September.
And
so
watching that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a follow-up to an acclaimed 2010 biography, Karloff, More Than a Monster, written by Karloff's official biographer, Stephen Jacobs. Audiences will be taken on a journey through Boris Karloff's life and career. They will discover the secrets of the man, the struggles and triumphs of his career, as well as the surprising twists it took, and hear direct testimony from the man himself and those who were closest. I think this sounds like a really great thing. You're obviously a huge fan, Lydia. So let's hear your thoughts first.
I don't know what to say. I'm excited. I want to learn everything I can about him.
Yeah, what has Karloff meant to you as a horror fan?
Well, he's kind of a big deal. I don't know. It's kind of like, the dad of horror movies, because it's like ever since I was little, I saw that face. When you think of horror movies, I always thought of like the classic, horror movies, and Frankenstein, Dracula are like the dad, the father figures of horror for me.
Yeah, I agree. I grew up watching those movies, sitting on my grandpa's knee. I remember watching Frankenstein when I was real little. Actually, my first exposure to the Frankenstein character, it wasn't Karloff. My first exposure to the Frankenstein character was Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein.
Nice.
And I loved it, and then that got me into monsters, which got me into modern monsters like Freddy, and here I am today.
So would you say that it is easy or difficult to quantify his impact on the genre?
Both, I guess, because you could say, if you say the easy route would be it's immeasurable, right? It's an immeasurable impact, just like Bela Lugosi. His impact was immeasurable. Or James Whale as a director, or Todd Browning as a director. These are basically the legends that we stand on their shoulders when we go to when we make our movies, So John Carpenter's, people were Howard Hawks and those folks. So the people that we feel as our heroes, like the John Carpenters, have them as their heroes. So
that's some quality stuff right there.
And it's weird too, because it's like they were kind of like they were supposed to kind of fit into this like cookie cutter monster movie, but Karloff himself like kind of brought everything to the table, like how creative he was in playing the character and being involved in what options he had to be involved in. Like he took out one of his teeth to like have a more sunken in face. Like he did that. He chose to do that. That's insane. I mean, like that's really inspiring when you think about it.
Oh yeah. And one more thing to talk about this, to your point, in the original Frankenstein, in the script, he's written as a mute monster. But when you watch James Whale's movie, he's anything but. He is this sympathetic being who is just brought to life, and he has become sentient, and he doesn't know what's going on, and there's just this warmth and horror and empathy in that character without any line of dialogue. So yeah, he's a pretty big deal, as Lydia put it. So this is interesting. I talked to Derek about this already, but there's a new Friday the 13th movie, just a fan film just appeared, premiered this Friday, on Friday the 13th. Which, by the way, folks, if you haven't listened to our Friday the 13th episode, go back and listen to that. It's a blast. Called Jason Rising. Did either of you have a chance to see this or hear anything about it?
No. I mean, I heard what you told me, and it sounded terrible. So I think I'm gonna get those minutes of my life back and not watch it.
Just take the gloves right off, Derek. I watched it. I have some thoughts on it. We may get into them after you guys both have seen this movie. We can kind of discuss it maybe at the beginning of next week or something. It's only about 45 minutes long, so can breeze through it. There's some good stuff in it. It's decently. I mean, hey, they made this as a passion project. You know what I mean? A love of the franchise. So, and it brings back like Adrienne King and some other final girls. So I mean, more power to them for that stuff. You know, you can't be mad at that. Whether I love the direction it went or the execution is another story that we'll discuss. But I just want to congratulate them for making it. Good job, guys. You know, let's keep Jason on our screen, since the bastards that actually own the rights can't quit fighting over it to give us the actual movie.
I know, all of them, they're fighting over money they could be making, but they're not because they're fighting.
Exactly. It's an endless loop. Not a very smart decision. Come on, guys. Get with it. Sean Cunningham, pay Victor Miller, and let's get going. Now, guys, the last bit of news I have tonight is fitting, because it kind of ends a saga that we were on for a while as a group, right? It over the weekend, it's been announced that shooting has wrapped on the Toxic Avenger reboot. So we have finally wrapped up this movie. We still don't really know much about it. We know that Lloyd Kaufman was on set at multiple times, so that's good. So, thoughts? Are you guys surprised that it's done filming already? Are you worried that it's done filming already? What do you guys think?
I'm not worried. I'm sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have faith that they at least knew a little bit of what they were doing.
Yeah, I think so. I'm kind of shocked that it's done already, because and it's not because I don't think they gave it enough time to shoot. I'm shocked because we've been doing this now for a while, and that was like one of the early episodes. And now I realize, oh crap, we've been doing this for like, multiple months now. So yeah, of course filming's done. But I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I mean, if you know what you're doing, it doesn't take a lot of time to accomplish what you set out to do. So I'm not worried.
Big actors that know what they're doing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
just some of the names that are attached to this project, I feel like it's got to go in the right direction, but we'll see.
Yeah, I have all the faith in the world that it's going to be good. I think it's going to be fun. For comparison's sake, we actually Friday start filming the last 2 days of our movie. So, which means that we'll film for a total amount of 4 days or something like that. Maybe some pickup shots here and there if we have those scheduled. So, yeah, I'm excited, ready to go. Are you guys excited about filming this weekend?
Yes.
It's always the best, isn't it?
It is. Ready to get her done.
Yeah.
Ready to kill some people, Lydia?
Definitely.
I'm ready to get into the editing room.
Yeah, definitely.
One more thing about the the Toxic Avenger. So I would imagine that it doesn't matter like what era, as far as like when you started watching horror movies, a new Toxic Avenger is going to open up like a lot of people to that franchise, that because it's really underrated, to be honest with you. I feel like you really have to know your stuff in order to have seen or know about it as a franchise.
Yeah, well, especially now.
That's exciting.
I mean, there's tons of new Trauma fans born every day, which is great. But for people of a particular age, namely Derek and I, who were born in the 80s, we knew who the Toxic Avenger was because we were born in the 80s. And do you remember when we were growing up, Derek, there was literally a Toxic Avenger cartoon on TV?
Yeah, vaguely I remember that, yeah.
There was a Saturday morning Toxic Avenger cartoon for an R-rated, horribly inappropriate movie series. They used to do that shit. There was RoboCop cartoons. There was Rambo. There was Beetlejuice.
Oh, man, I love Beetlejuice.
Yeah, Beetlejuice is awesome.
It was good.
We might be getting a new one, guys. Maybe. We might be getting a new Beetlejuice.
Hey, he came back as Batman.
Hey, Michael Keaton in an interview, they asked him if he had talked to Tim Burton recently. And he said, basically asking him if he talked about him being Batman. And he said, no, but only because we've been talking about something else. And he couldn't elaborate on what that something else was. So it's either a new Beetlejuice movie or a new Batman movie. And I would be 100% fine with either.
I thought you were going to say Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, starring Michael Keaton. He's Edward Beetlejuice Hands.
Edward Beetlejuice Hands.
We better be careful. We said his name a bunch. If we say it 3 times, he's going to pop up somewhere. All right, guys, that does it for the horror news. Did you guys hear anything that I missed?
Nope.
How about you, viewer? If there's something I missed or something you want us to talk about, type it into the comments and send them on into us, and we will discuss them on next week's podcast.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we'll discuss them on a couple weeks' podcast, because by the time we get this, it'll be a couple weeks later. All right, guys. I'm sorry to pull back the curtain right there, but say Libby.
Kayfabe. It's gone.
Yeah, I just killed kayfabe. Damn it. All right, guys. So tonight's movie is the 1986 film Night of the Creeps, written and directed by Fred Dekker, who wrote and directed last week's movie, The Monster Squad. So,
did you mean to do that?
I did not. And here's what's great is I realized that afterwards. We watched The Monster Squad. I was thinking about what movie to watch, and I looked over at my Blu-ray collection, and I was like, Night of the Creeps I haven't watched in a while. That's a good one. And after I picked it, I realized we're doing back-to-back Dekker. We're doing a Dekker marathon. So now all we have to do is The Predator, and we'll be in. So, guys, this movie is a lot of fun. It is a hodgepodge of multiple genres of alien movies, of monster movies, of slashers, of zombie films. It's got it all thrown in there with a great homage to the 1950s.
Oh, for sure.
Which starts us with the beginning of this movie, which to me is fucking hilarious. So first we start with the logo, which is great. The opening titles of this, I think, are awesome. Yeah. You see it slowly start to spell out creep, and you get that kind of cool music. Did you guys think that sets the tone pretty well?
Yeah. I agree.
I love the font of the word creep.
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely 50s B movie.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Why? You think that's wild, Lydia? What did you think of the very next scene?
So I'm trying to remember everything because I've only seen this one time.
Yes. So
that's in the spaceship.
The very first scene's in that spaceship.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot that.
Aliens.
I watched this last night for the first time. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to this. Yeah, I totally forgot that even happened. That seems like a different movie.
It totally seems like a different movie.
So
but I was
talking to Jamie about this earlier. So when we watched the Blob, like before I started watching that movie, I'm like, man, the beginning of this is so much different than I thought it was, because I had put the beginning of this movie with the beginning of Blob in my mind.
I could see that.
Yeah, and then afterwards I was like, huh, well, where do I know that from? So
that's awesome. By the time the movie ends, I feel like you completely forget that.
Yeah, so the beginning feels like it was almost like, hey, we need an explanation for what this experiment is.
Yeah.
And so instead of just being like, well, we can have it like just fall from space, I want to show like some evil alien releasing it on the space while some other aliens chasing to make him stop from. And the creature designs are hilarious to me. They have this perpetual frown.
Yeah.
They're so goofy. And they're naked.
Yes,
they are naked.
And I like how the one alien says, "Damn."
Yeah. How would you describe them? They're like weird, naked little bulldog orange aliens. Like,
yes, that's a pretty good explanation.
Fair description.
Yeah, it's pretty
They're
good.
so weird. I'm just thinking of like the listeners are gonna, if they haven't seen this movie, they're gonna be like, oh, that's not a. They're gonna be like, what do they look like? I don't know. They're like, they have like little butt cheeks.
You know, with a really hideous face, they kind of look like, and not the hair, but the old troll dolls that they sold in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they kind of do. For our viewers, we'll put a picture of him right here. But for everybody else, our audio listeners, you got to check them out. They are very interesting little creatures. I'll actually put them in the thumbnail to this episode so you can see them.
Yep. You gonna put one of their butt cheeks?
I'm gonna put
just one of their frowny faces.
A full ash cheek shot.
You gotta watch the movie to see the butt cheeks, okay, people?
The butt cheeks.
Yeah, we're not gonna give it all away in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Release the butt cheek cut. So after that wild opening, you think that's wild. Then we end up in Rush Week of 1959. And we're transported into this black and white film with color titles. And so then we're told basically another kind of story inside itself. We find out that this girl has just dumped this cop. And she's like, her roommates are talking about it or whatever. Well, a boy comes up, Joe College with his flat top, comes up and starts throwing rocks at the window, that old trick. And she goes down and they go on a date and they wind up in Lookout Point. And at Lookout Point, they're, kind of flirting or whatever. And then their cop, her ex-boyfriend, the cop, shows up, which is which at the time is Officer Ray Cameron, which will become a very important character in this movie. So Officer
and let's Cameron, set this up. Why he is going car to car, telling them to disperse. Yes,
because there is a axe murderer on the loose. So a guy escaped the mental institution and has been armed and extremely dangerous. So he's going car to car telling folks to go home, basically. And our girl and her Joe College boyfriend decide to stay, and they make a wish on a star. And by the way, guys, the acting of the boyfriend is terrible.
So you're bringing this up a little early, but I'm glad you touched on it. So the acting in this movie is spotty at times. It's such a fun movie, and it definitely has its strong actors, but yeah, I mean, that's one of them, but there are a couple of instances where...
Guys, it has the strongest actor in it.
Dude, he is the strongest actor.
We'll get to him later.
Yeah.
I mean, of all time.
Of all time.
So they see this star getting bigger, and it's the experiment dropping down to Earth. And he says, of course, I bet it's that one. So he goes to investigate, and while he's in the woods investigating the experiment, she hears a radio broadcast that says that the murderer is on Route 66 by Corman College. Did you guys catch that?
Yep.
Corman College. There's a lot of these references in the movie. We'll point them out when we get to them. So Corman College, and we see the creature suck into the guy's mouth.
Well, wait, yeah. So before that, so when the radio is going on, and she's like, "Wait a minute," and she flips the lights on to see, 66 Corman College, and then that's one of the funniest lines in the movie. She like starts yelling at her boyfriend. She was like, "Hey, come back! I'll let you feel my boobs."
Yeah, no, she says, "I'll let you fondle my breasts."
I'll let you fondle my breasts.
Which is the weirdest way to say that.
That's the best way.
I mean, if I were a girl, that's the way that I would say it, but...
That is the way Derek would say it. He'd be like, "Excuse me, ma'am, may I fondle your breasts?"
It's always good to ask permission. But anyway.
Always. But then he would also say, the breasts don't matter. You see, the body is but a vessel for the soul.
All right, now you're crossing a line. He just made that up. That actually never happened. Let's move on.
That's a classic Derek LeMaster line, by the way. True story, folks. So, so then we see the killer dragging an axe behind her, and as he's about to make the swipe, we cut.
Yep.
What do you guys think of this 50s chunk of the movie?
Perfect.
Yeah, I liked it.
It sets the tone really well, doesn't it?
I mean, it sets the tone. It introduces the most pivotal character in this movie. It lets you, because as this movie progresses, you realize like he's kind of at the end of his rope, and this gives that backstory that's crucial to let you know like why he's there. Mm-hmm. So it does a lot of good character development.
So not only does it set up his backstory, but it also sets up how the experiment survived, and we see what its host is and who its host is. So I'm assuming that the military had come in at some point and took it. We don't have that. We don't need that.
Yeah, but there are a couple of plot holes that this does set up, but yeah, for the main part, it does what it's intended to do, and that's give you a history.
Yeah. So then we fast forward 27 years later to 1986. The best year ever, guys.
I assume that's when you were born.
Well, yeah, that's the best part, but also Top Gun came out in 1986. Master of Puppets was released. Come on, good stuff. But so we cut to Rush Week, 1986, and we're introduced to our two main characters. Two of our main characters. We're introduced to Chris Romero and JC. So Chris Romero obviously is named after George Romero, the father of the zombie film and great independent filmmaker. And JC's last name is Carpenter, named after, of course, the Messiah of horror, John Carpenter.
Also does a really good musical show. Just throwing that out there.
Yes, he does.
You've already bragged about that.
We will brag about it every time our Lord and Savior, John Carpenter, is mentioned. So, guys, just off the bat, I love the relationship between Chris and JC. Mm-hmm. And I think JC is fucking hilarious.
Dude, he is really good. I really enjoyed his character. In this movie.
Yeah.
The lines he has and the way he delivers them are so great.
Yeah.
The lines in this movie in general, like for kind of a B movie, like some of the dialogue, maybe not necessarily how it's delivered in some instances, but like the dialogue is really good, and there's so many one-liners in this movie.
Oh, so many great ones.
It's hard to track.
JC says a bunch of them right off the bat. JC and Chris are walking down the street, and Chris sees our main heroine,
Cynthia. Yeah.
Cynthia Cronenberg, by the way, named after the great David Cronenberg. So, so he sees Cynthia and falls in love immediately. It's one of those movie, love moments where he stares longingly into the middle distance.
The only thing it was missing at that point was like a straight cut to a musical, like move in.
Yeah.
Take
so
these broken wings. No.
So he sees her and is immediately in love, and he's like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "How the hell should I know who that is?" "Hey, honey, what's your name?"
By the way, if this were real life, like how CJ goes over and like actually starts the conversation, I love how he like dogs his friend.
JC.
What did I say? CJ?
Yeah.
JC. Anyway, how JC like goes over and starts talking to her. Man, he totally would have gotten the girl.
Yeah.
If this were real life. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, JC's the best. So
yeah,
they follow her into this place because he's in love now.
Frat house, yeah.
Yeah, they go into the frat house, and JC goes in to find out who she is, do reconnaissance. It's kind of like, the Dumb and Dumber scene. I'm going to hang out by the bar, put up the vibes. Yeah. So he goes over and he rescues her from this dude, man, Steve. What do you guys think of Steve's monobrow?
Oh my God, man. That's such a great detail to add.
That was real.
In real life, they're like, I know who we're going to make this guy look like.
Dude,
we don't know.
The best is when he says, oh man, of course she's with a guy. And he goes, "Chris, what are you talking about? The guy has one continuous eyebrow." So he goes over and talks to her, finds out her name, finds out that she has a boyfriend, but he also says some really great one-liners to Steve. Like he's like, "Hey, what's his name?" "Steve." "Hey, Steve, they have a phone call for you over there." When he comes back, he's like, "No, dude, not cool." And he's like, it's just great. And Steve's like, acts like he's cool, and he's just such a fucking weirdo with a monobrow. So,
oh my gosh.
So Chris decides, the only way I'm going to impress this girl is to join a frat. I'm going to join a fraternity. So that's where we meet another great character in this movie, the goddamn Bradster.
The Bradster.
Lydia, what are your thoughts on the Bradster?
I mean, what is anybody's thoughts on the Bradster?
I know I've got thoughts on the Bradster.
I mean, he's like the villain of this movie, where there are literally aliens running around laying eggs in people's heads. Like, he's the villain.
He is the villain. You're right.
Eric, what do you think of the Bradster?
Dude, the entire movie, I'm like, man, I know this guy from somewhere. And I finally looked him up on IMDb, and I can thank my grandma for watching Mama's, Mama's House?
Mama's Family?
Mama's Family. Yeah, I knew him, man. I watched so many episodes of Mama's Family. I forgot what the name of it was, but that's neither here nor there.
You call him Mama's House. That's a Martin Lawrence movie, man. Big Mama's House.
Hey, tomato, it's whatever. But yeah, it really annoyed me that I couldn't place that guy until I looked him up. But yeah, he's totally the young guy from...
I love his. They gave him like this bleachest of blonde hair.
Oh man,
made him total douche.
Yep.
There's actually a line later in the movie that's really funny when it's after they're confronted when they confront him outside after what is about to happen occurs, and he says, "Go practice your goose stepping."
That was CJ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
JC.
Damn it. JC.
Just you sometimes get your words mixed up. It's not a big deal.
I'm gonna write that down really quick.
Want me to help you spell it? It's JC.
That's a low blow.
You should be Steve. Not cool.
Not cool.
So they go and meet with Bradster and his frat buddies and ask to join. And there's this great extended bit where JC continues to like name all of the types of words for money. Things like moolah, greenbacks, the old green, dinero. It just goes for like 35 seconds.
The only one he missed, I think, was Quan.
Yeah, it's so great. So they tell him that the only way they can join is if they pull a prank. And of course, Chris says, we don't have to have sex with a farm animal, do we?
Yeah.
And so the
Bradster does have a response to that. He was like, interesting but tools. No.
Yeah. So they have to take a dead body and dump it onto the front lawn of a different sorority house. And so that's what they're tasked to do. After they leave, we find out that the Bradster is Cynthia's boyfriend. Would Cynthia ever be dating the Bradster, guys? What do you think?
No. I mean, he's a step up from Unibrow guy, but no.
They didn't seem like they had been together for too long because she clearly didn't know him very well yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like they had just started dating. Yeah. Lydia, would you ever date the Bradster?
No.
That's going to be a no for me, dog.
Yeah, like how terrible do you have to be to say, go steal someone's body who has a family and dump it somewhere where somebody's going to be traumatized by it? Like,
yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Horrible do you have to be to do something like that?
It would be pretty bad.
I guess equally as horrible as the person who does it.
The fact that they agreed is like unrealistic to me.
Well, especially for their characters, but they need a reason. We needed a story reason to get to the next
well, and it's like you'll do anything for love, and I totally understand.
Yes, exactly.
Like what morgue? Where's the morgue at? So
yeah, tell me where it is. So we get this great scene of them breaking into the morgue, and we see this nerdy scientist guy, played by David Hayter, who's been in a lot of stuff. You recognize him from a million movies, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I see him, I always think of City Slickers.
Yeah.
And guys, this is a deep cut, but Carpool with Tom Arnold.
That is a deep cut.
Do you remember that movie, Derek?
Nah, vaguely.
It's a cheesy 90s comedy where Tom Arnold is a bank robber. It's something. It's a special one. I used to watch it as a kid.
Little bit of a side note, but do you remember the bank robbery movie with Bill Murray and Randy Quaid and who was the girl?
Yeah, it's a Quick Change.
Is it? It is Quick Change. Yeah,
Quick Change. It's a great one.
Yeah,
great one. But so we get this bit where the scientist is like he puts in most of the code and he forgets the last number of the code. So he goes and makes a phone call and he's talking to somebody. Hey, read me the notepad. No, this notepad. And while he's doing that, our guys go in and JC sees this keypad and he's just like pushes 0 just out of like, and it opens this compartment, which is the best way they could possibly get it. Yes. It's hilarious.
So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lydia.
No, yeah, that's all I was gonna say. Yeah. Literally, that was so funny to me.
Such a great.
The only thing I had against this scene was the fact that, like, literally, that is the only security that they have. Like, how did they get into the building? How did they?
That's
like all
the
that
best
stuff
part.
in my mind.
It's a secured place in the university morgue, is what it seems like. So that's just that's the best joke about it. Is like that they've had this thing for like almost 30 years and haven't figured out what to do with it. So this body is just sitting in here. Basically, is the joke.
Cryogenics.
So they find
not a Q word, but
they find that cryogenics is definitely a C word. You non-spelling son of a bitch.
That was a reference to my cup. Anyway, I've got one coming up, just so you know.
Okay, I can't wait. So we, they end up in this room and they see the frozen Joe College from the beginning of the movie.
The cadaver?
The cadaver of Joe College, yeah. And he's frozen. And as JC puts it, he's a corpsicle.
Corpsicle. That's classic.
Yep. Corpsicle. And so JC just starts fucking with switches. Like, he's just like, all right. And Chris is like, no, you did not just do that.
Yeah.
And then he sees the button and he pushes it with his crutch. So we got to also mention that we haven't mentioned this. JC walks with crutches. Like, he can't walk by himself, so he has two crutches. Mm-hmm. And so he pushes it with the crutch and opens it up. And he says, hey, if we're going to do this, I don't see any other bodies laying around, so we've got to take this guy.
Yeah.
So they're carrying him out, and there's this great exchange where he's like, hey, is he heavy? Mm-hmm. is he cold? Mm-hmm. The corpse comes to life, and they freak out, and they run away. And the scientist goes in there, and he screams, and we end the scene. And then we track to a phone call. First we cut to a desert island.
Yeah.
And we see a superbly handsome man dressed in a tuxedo.
on the ground.
Yes. Drinking a drink of some sort, like a fruity drink, with a lei around his neck. It's Tom Atkins as Detective Ray Carpenter, Ray Cameron, named after the great James Cameron. So we see this flashback. Basically, he's having a dream. We see the girl from the beginning, Betty or what have you. Mm-hmm. And she's trying to say something to him. It cuts, and he's like holding a shotgun, and he walks upon a skeleton of the creepy axe guy, who turns around and he shoots it, and then he wakes up from the phone call. And of course, he answers the phone like, I will answer the phone from this day forward.
Yep.
How's he answer it, Lydia?
I don't know.
You remember? How's he answer it, Derek?
He doesn't say thrill me yet.
He does say thrill me.
He does say thrill me.
That's exactly how he answers it. Thrill me.
Thrill me.
Which is his catchphrase throughout the movie.
I couldn't remember if he said it before or after the Dumbo.
Yep, he said it immediately. He answers the phone and says, thrill me.
Thrill me.
Thrill me.
And we cut to him.
Is this wait? He's like, is this Officer Cameron?
Yeah.
No, it's
Bozo the Clown.
Bozo the Clown.
So when we cut back to the when he arrives on the scene, he's standing there dressed in a trench coat, looking cool, and he's like backlit, and they're like, Officer Cameron? No, Bullwinkle the Moose.
That was honestly the only one I didn't like.
What, Bullwinkle the Moose?
Yeah, just because it felt too pushed. You know what I mean? Like because it happened directly after the last one. I felt like it should have had a little bit more of a break between.
Yeah, as a first-time watcher, it just made me laugh. Like, I was just like, it literally happened so fast after he did the last line. Like, I was like, what is this? What is this character?
That's what I loved about it. It sets up who he is so good.
Yeah.
Because he's just like this, I don't give a shit, I'm a smart ass, whatever kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this great scene where he's talking about, like, he's trying to figure out the bodies, and then he talks to the desk sergeant, whose name, did you guys catch your desk sergeant's name? Sergeant Ramey.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep, Sergeant Ramey. So he talks to Desk Sergeant Ramey, and he's like, so what's going on with this? Well, we've got a problem. People that are dead for 27 years don't just get up and walk out. And he said, well, a janitor saw some people run out. He's like, and you guys interviewed the janitor, right? No, I'll go do that. He's just like, what the fuck kind of police station is this?
Well, I mean, at one point they're like, I sent the 2 rookies down here, and at some point they had to use the bathroom because there were 2 bodies that were discovered.
Then there's only one.
Now there's only one.
Yeah, so they we cut back to Chris and JC at their dorm room, and this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Like, they're out of breath, they're scared because of what just happened, and Chris starts complaining, why did we do all this? Why are you doing that? And JC just fucking puts him on Front Street.
Yeah.
Just lays. What do you guys think of JC's little speech here?
It was great. It was justified.
Love it. Honest.
Yeah. So
it was honest. You can tell, like, just between these 2 characters that they're like brothers. You know what I mean? They're not, they're kind of like that next level of friend. And you know that JC would do anything for his friend.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, and the fact that the way he lays it out is so good and so funny. He's just like, boom, here it is. You always, you were on the next girl, and then, now you're onto this girl and the Cynthia girl, and then next week's bimbo, blah, blah, blah. And he starts just laying it all out. You can do these things. I can't do these, but you can totally do these things. You got to get over yourself. And he's like, I'm sorry, for being an asshole. I'm sorry too. And then and then he's like, no, so fuck you. Fuck you. You would. You'd let me. Yeah, you'd like it. And then they have a pillow fight in the scene.
Are we done?
So I love that because it really shows those characters. It's a really good scene to build those characters, I feel like. And then we get this, they're walking out, and that's when they run into the Bratster and all of his friends. And, Bratster's like, not cool, man. You had to, I'm actually skipping a scene. In between there's this very important scene where we get Cynthia's at home. She goes to the dorm room. A girl asks her if she can take the brains downstairs. She has a jars of brains for an experiment. And she's like, go ahead and put them in the basement. So she goes upstairs and she changes. And while this is going on, we hear rocks hitting the window again. Because it's muscle memory from good old Joe College.
Mm-hmm.
So she checks the window, and we see the first, like, practical effect in the movie, which is his head comes apart and worms spill. What do you guys think of this?
Go ahead.
I just don't know how they did the
Go ahead.
I don't know how they did the worms, like the slugs or whatever. It looks really cool.
It's so cool the way his head splits open, isn't it?
Yeah.
Derek.
There's something to be said about practical effects compared to some of the digital effects that I think that a lot of filmmakers rely on nowadays. I mean, yes, it's probably cheaper, probably saves them time up front, but man, there is something about it. Like, this movie made in 87, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it
came out in 87. Yeah.
Yeah, probably filmed in 85 or 86.
86,
but this movie looks 1,000 times better than some of the newer movies that rely too heavily on the digital effects. So it's fantastic that they just the boundaries that they pushed in this. I think they did a great job.
It's a very cool concept that their heads split open to release the worms instead of something lame like they just spin them back up. You know what I mean? Because that could easily have been a thing, but instead their whole head split open like a cantaloupe. And so Detective Cameron, of course, shows up on the scene, and he sees this aftermath, and sees like it looks like an axe had went to this dude's head. So of course he's having flashbacks of the axe killer that killed him. We find out that he is the police officer from the beginning, and that was his ex-girlfriend that was murdered by the axed man. And we get this scene which doesn't have a lot of context yet. I mean, it kind of does. He's looking at the house mother's house, the little cottage.
He stares for a moment.
And he stares, and we get like some quick shots of like a body being wrapped into plastic. And we don't kind of know what this means. We kind of have a hint of what it means, but we don't really know what it means yet. And he's like, so what do you call that? Call that the house mother's, stage or whatever. And she's like, all right, that's weird. So that's when we get the confrontation between the Bratster and our heroes, where he's like, not cool. You dumped a dead body in front of the girl's house, blah, blah. And they're like, well, we didn't do it. We chickened out. We couldn't do it. JC confronts him and tells him, basically to go fuck yourself, Brad. Go practice your goose stepping. And like a jerk, he trips a crippled man, like a handicapped man, trips him, and he's like, oh, I guess it's nothing personal.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a pivotal moment because Cynthia sees this all go down.
Sees the side of Brad.
Yep, and that's the catalyst for her to decide that, hey, this is not in my best interest. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this guy.
What do you think of Lydia? What do you think of the way she rejects Brad?
Yeah, I was like, obviously, it's about time.
Yeah, the manner in which she does it. What do you think of this?
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, she just flips him off. Yeah, it's like.
Oh, she did the Jack in the Box, didn't she?
Yeah, the Jack in the Box flip off. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my favorite little bit is that everybody around her claps when she does it. Bravo, bravo, good on you. So then she joins our crew, and she's like, well, I'm Cynthia, Cronenberg. And he's like, well, hi, I'm Christopher Romero and J.C. Carpenter. And they're arrested.
Yep.
And we get this great scene of them sitting in the interrogation room with the janitor and Detective Cameron. And Cameron's grilling them about, so this happened. So I see this dead body, and I'm thinking to myself, it might be, a good old college prank, bordering on bad taste, but still on the line of tomfoolery. But then there's all this other stuff. But then the body is mutilated and everything, and he's like, come on, JC says, do you think we'd be the kind of guys that'd be hanging around in a frat house like that? And Chris says, he's lying, we did it.
Do you know what I kind of equated this to?
What's that?
To give you a backstory, so when I was younger, myself and two other people, two of my friends, got caught destructing. It was destruction of mailboxes, right? So I got pulled out of the car, and I was standing with the cop, and the cop is like, "So what have you boys been doing tonight?" And I'm like, just cruising. And my two friends are still sitting in the car, and he's like, I'm going to ask you one more time. What were you guys doing tonight? And I don't realize that my head did this, but from the story of the other two, apparently my head dropped and I started spilling the beans.
Bashing in mailboxes.
Never do that. That's a bad idea. But yeah, that's where my mind went in this scene.
Yeah, I have a similar one. It was a couple of my buddies were out. We were not destroying property. We weren't doing anything illegal. We were just being silly and running around in togas back in our teen days. And we were about to go to the store down the road, and two of my buddies are standing outside, and a police officer pulls up, and he's like, hey, have you guys seen any kids running around in togas? And one of our friends said, oh yeah, that was us. And our other friend just slowly looked at him like, you got to be kidding me. Like, he didn't know anything.
Was Zach the one that confessed?
No, it was actually Andrew that confessed. Yeah. And Zach looked at him like, what? The best part of that story is I was walking out to join them, and I saw the cop car, and I turned around and walked back inside.
That is the best.
It's going to be a no for me, guys.
Yeah, I forgot something in there. I'll be right back.
It was like that, You know that Simpsons meme where Grandpa walks in and he puts down all of his stuff and hangs it on, then turns around and walks and puts his hat back on and walks out of the door? So they, so he says they chickened out. We were going to do it, but we chickened out. And we left the body there. It twitched. It came alive. And, of course, Cameron is kind of confused by this, but he's kind of starting to see something's up. Something's weird going on. And the janitor says, he's like, well, this janitor
like banshees
can place you here, and said that they were screaming like banshees. So the janitor multiple times repeats, screaming like banshees. So the next section is like,
real quick, you know what I really loved about this movie?
What's that?
I love that it didn't take itself too seriously.
No, not at all.
There were at least 2 references to the movie in the movie.
Yeah. He says, JC in that scene says, do you think I would join a frat house? I'd rather get my brains eaten by an alien invader.
Yeah.
and Cameron some point, at one point says something about, is this a case or is this a B movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
those are the 2 references I was referring to.
And then he, so we get this scene where the coroner, which by the way, this coroner is something else. He's always eating food.
Dude, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, because in the very first scene where we see the 2 dead bodies, or we're supposed to see the 2 dead bodies, they bring in this briefcase, they set it down, they open it up, and there's a sandwich in there for the coroner. He's always eating.
And that's, by the way, that's a weird trope in movies. They always have coroners eating. And we'll flash a couple clips here. But we have, right off the top of my head, this movie, there's the bit in Friday the 13th, Part 4. The coroner's eating a sandwich, lays this thing on there. There's Gone in 60 Seconds, where the Sphinx, when we first meeting, is working as a coroner and eating a sandwich.
Actually, Jason Goes to Hell, the coroner is eating.
Yeah.
I think if I were to guess, and I am probably wrong on this, it's more or less to be like, these are dead bodies, and this guy's eating. It's no big deal to him.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's also a shorthand to show how gross these guys are. This guy's disgusting because he's eating on top of a dead body.
Yeah, and this dead body specifically, this is a hilarious scene because it gets up with the toe tag. It stands up. It doesn't bother the coroner at all. The coroner is, doing paperwork and eating his heart away. And then he starts to walk out of the precinct, and he walks by this police officer who's just look at his notes. Hey, see you next weekend, or see you next week.
I love that bit.
It was great.
That was good.
It was really good.
And then he runs into
how disturbing that looked of him, that guy's body walking.
I was gonna say, what did you think of that makeup job? That's so cool.
I mean,
he's cut open.
I feel like the makeup could have been stronger, honestly, but it was really disturbing. The red color and how pale he is, and his eyes are white. Yeah, that was really spooky.
And he, of course, runs into the janitor, who is still laughing about the boys screaming like banshees. And then he runs into our corpse, and he screams like a banshee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's almost as if the dead, the Walking Dead, are just kind of reliving the last moments. It's like the last thing that they have in their memory bank, and they're just going about those last steps because they're always going back to the places that they're most familiar with.
Once it takes over their brain, absolutely. Yeah. Once it reaches that point. So after this bit, we what's the next bit? Do you guys remember what happens next? Because I don't have my notes. Let me go grab my notes.
We are not to the prom or the dance scene yet.
No. Oh, so what happens next is JC.
JC.
JC and Chris.
Where he gets infected.
Yeah, so JC and Chris are hanging out, and they get a knock on the. So JC they're both studying, and JC is listening to his headphones, and he's drumming the entire time, being super loud. And there's this great shot of Chris like looking up and then looking back at him like, "Are you serious right now?" And then he, of course, they get a knock on the door.
Yep.
And it's Cynthia.
Yep.
And she's like, "I looked you guys up. Hope you don't mind. I've got stuff I've got to, you guys are never going to believe this." And we cut and we see them walking down the street, and he's like, "Really?" Because the point we missed is there was this cat. The sorority house had a house cat, and this cat was infected by one of the worms. And when one of the girls picked it up, half of its face was like ripped off.
Yep.
And so she tells him about it, and JC says, "Night of the Living Dead cat."
Yeah.
And he starts doing like woo, spooky noises and stuff, and they're being followed, by the way, and they don't know they're being followed at this point. And some mysterious figure's following them. And she's like, "Well, I don't care if you don't believe me," or she's like, "I thought you guys would believe me." And Chris kind of puts his arm around her, and he and JC have this great moment where he's like, "Yes,"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I've got to go use the facilities. So you guys, you guys hang here." So JC goes to the bathroom, and Chris, continues to listen to Cynthia, and she tells him, "Hey, I think it was a dead body. I think it was like a zombie. Worms came out of its head. I know all this sounds crazy, but this is what happened." And he's like, "Okay, let's get you back home."
Yeah. Did you forget your meds?
And so JC is in the bathroom, and it's great. When we see him, he's literally writing graffiti on the wall of the bathroom.
He is, yep.
With pencil.
With pencil, writing some kind of dirty limerick or what have you. And the janitor walks into the bathroom, who is now basically corrupted.
Yeah, zombified.
Yeah. And so he falls over and his head busts open.
Yep.
And JC hears something. He opens the door and he sees this great effect of the busted head laying on the ground. And what do you guys think of the slug creatures? I think they're really cool, and the way they move is creepy.
Yeah.
I agree. It's like they got a fishing line.
They did that.
Yeah, it's so good, right?
Reeled them in. It's what I thought they did.
It has to be like monofilament, right? Like monofilament pulling them. But it's so smooth, and it's like they're like they're on a track almost.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like the way that they did the scenes where they enter the body, they had to have filmed it and then reverse the film.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like they did.
Yeah, they definitely did. You could tell on when the Bratster gets it.
The Bratster, yeah. That's where you noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely is reversed.
Definitely reversed, yeah. As Sam Raimi would say, that's the worst reverse acting I've ever seen. That's what he literally said that to Bruce Campbell on the set of Army of Darkness. So worst reverse acting I've ever seen. So JC is surrounded by these. He sees these creatures. He sees a matchbook on the floor and grabs it and lights it on fire and throws it in the path of one of the slug creatures, and it bursts into flames immediately. So fire and heat kill these things. We know that. He figures this out. So he decides one of them crawls up his leg, and so he tries to escape, but he can't run. He's on his crutches. So he falls, and he's trying to crawl out, and one of them enters towards his mouth, and we cut. And then we get this scene of Detective Cameron confronting Spanky, as he calls it. So after he drops Cynthia off, and she asks him if he wants to go to the formal with her. And he, of course, agrees. Chris agrees. So Detective Cameron basically pulls Chris over, or pulls Chris in and tells him to come to the apartment and calls him Spanky. After,
I think he goes over voluntarily, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or is that later?
No, well, he doesn't go over by himself. remember Cameron confronts him, and basically the next cut is they're in his apartment, and he's telling him the story. He keeps calling him Spanky.
Okay, because there's a version where they're like later in the film he comes in.
Later in the movie, yeah. So he's like, he starts telling him this backstory, and that's where we get the backstory to what happened. He tells him about, because he's like, oh, you had one that got away, high school sweetheart, and he's like, yeah, where is she? She's off in college. Well, my high school sweetheart was murdered by an axe murderer.
Yeah, she's here, she's there, she's everywhere.
Yeah. And then, so he tells them, he's like, so you know what happened next? Did they catch him and arrest him? Close. I caught up to him. And then he's like, did you go alone? Oh, no. I brought my 12 gauge.
Yeah.
And then he's like, then you know what happened? Should you be telling me this? Close. I leveled it at his chest. So we find out that he caught up to the axe murderer, killed him on his own, and then buried him in the vacant lot, which ended up being the quarters of the headmistress. And right around this point, we find out that the creatures are going underneath the house, and they went underneath the slugs went underneath the maid house. Mm-hmm. So we cut to the headmistress's hut, and do you guys see what she's watching, by the way? Lydia, did you catch what she was watching on TV?
I can't remember.
She was watching Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Oh, yeah. And they referenced that earlier, too.
They did, because this is like a good version of that kind of story,
Yeah.
So they referenced, but she's watching Plan 9. And the body, the corpse of the zombie, of the axe murderer arises from underneath and chops old lady to death with the axe. And Cameron gets the call. Thrill me. And winds up in this chase scene. What do you guys think of this portion, this like chase bit where they're trying to find the axe murderer? Because there's a really funny joke in here, I feel. The joke where they're like driving, looking for it, because he's arrived. He's like, well, where is he? He's got to be somewhere. And the police officers are driving, and they're like, nah, I don't see anything. And they drive right past him, and then they stop and reverse. Like,
yeah,
I think we found him.
Must have been those rookies.
Yeah. And then they see him, and they take off. And then there's like this bit where he's like, where the hell's my damn backup? And they all like pull in front of him and almost wreck him. And he's like, never mind. And he chases him down to this dead end. And they corner the corpse. And they start shooting holes in him, but it's not doing any good because they're shooting him in the chest. And he turns around and looks at Cameron and smiles. I think that's so creepy when it smiles.
Yeah,
like,
that was awesome.
It's like a skeleton face. It does that smile. What do you think of the makeup job of the skeleton itself, like that creature design?
I loved it.
Yeah, I think it's very like fun, right?
It's fun, yeah. It's definitely kind of like cartoonish, a little bit. But at the same time, it's like dirty and slimy and grungy, like rotting body. So it's like pretty gross to look at.
Yeah. So then Derek, he shoots the axe murderer and blows his head off, and the worms go everywhere.
Yep.
And then that's when he knows, oh, this shit is real. Something's going on. And he kind of has a breakdown. Cameron does, because he says, I already killed you.
Yep.
So do you guys think this was his breaking point? Because when we get to the scene later, he's not in a good place.
Yeah, I think that this could be that moment where, he was already like, what was he really living for? It doesn't seem like he's got anybody in his life. Obviously this is kind of, bringing up a lot of old memories and things like that. And that was probably the you know, that last step to the edge before you decide that you want to go off the cliff.
The one thing that's haunted him his whole life.
Yeah, and it came back to haunt him one more time.
It came back, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So then Chris is getting ready for the formal. He has the tux and everything, and he goes to he's asking, hey, have you guys seen JC? I haven't seen him in a while.
Yep.
And he goes to the dorm room, and guys, this is one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. He sees a tape, like after he gets ready for the formal, he sees a tape player that says, play me, has a note written on it. So he plays it, and JC tells him that he's been infected. And that,
he doesn't have a pulse.
That it came into his mouth, that heat kills it. And then he says, you know, I love you, Chris. And it's just really emotional. I love it. Then he says, one of the most heartbreaking things possible. He says, I walked today, Chris.
Yeah.
Like, all by myself, I walked. I love you. I'm going down to the boiler room because heat kills it.
Yeah.
And so Chris is crying, of course. And he goes down to the boiler room and he finds JC's body. And JC has managed to kill every single slug that was in him because he burned it to death by being near the boiler room. So he sacrificed himself to kill all of these because he knew he was doomed anyway.
So sad.
It was bittersweet.
Yeah, what a great character.
Super
JC
sweet.
is.
Yeah. No, and he was one of the strong points in this movie. And
Absolutely.
it was bittersweet. You know, obviously his sacrifice, not only for his friend, but for anybody who could potentially have been infected, but also and the bitter part is it's an off-screen death of a major character.
Yeah.
So I don't really like that, but also I understand why they did it.
Well, kind of, because it would probably be too hard to just mean-spirited to watch JC die.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Death.
Well, and it's really impactful, the message that he left.
Yes, the message is why I don't think we have the on-screen death. The message is because we don't know what happened to JC yet. We just know that he probably is infected. We're expecting maybe to show up as like a zombie or something, but instead we get this like very emotional, poignant recording saying, hey, the fact that he just tells him he loves him without any hesitation, and that, hey, basically you're my best friend, and I've got to stop this. And it's just heartbreaking to me that he literally says, I walked today. It's just like such a like college student moment. You know what I mean? Just because he's a kid still. He's a kid.
Yeah.
And so he, of course, is devastated. And so he goes to the one person that he knows that could help him solve this problem, that these aliens exist. And we cut to Cameron's house, and he's having himself a little drink and listening to some little jazz music. There's a knock on the door. He ignores it. Knock again. He finally goes and answers it, and we see that he has duct taped the doors. And at first, you're thinking because he's afraid of. My takeaway when I first watched it a long time ago was this your takeaway, Lydia, that he was trying to keep the creatures from coming in?
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, he's trying to protect himself from the creatures. And he says Alfalfa's dead, and he tells him. And so then we get this cool scene we cut to the kitchen and we see that the stove is on. The gas is on, and he was literally going to suffocate himself to death.
Yeah.
But duty calls, and he has to protect the people. So he freaking starts gearing up, and there's he grabs his shotgun and loads it, make sure it's loaded. He's grabbing all the stuff. He goes and turns off the stove. And we get this great cut to them at the police station armory. And he's like, wants to sign out a flamethrower. And the person that is signing out the flamethrower, do you guys recognize who that is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great Dick Miller.
Gremlins.
Yep. Chopping Mall, a million other movies. So yeah, Dick Miller and The Burbs, one of my all-time favorites. We'll have to get to that one day. We'll get to that.
Oh, I love The Burbs.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's a good one. It's horror, Jason. It's fine. So he says, "Hey, I need the paperwork," and he's like, "Yeah, I don't have the paperwork." And he's like, "Well, that's going to be a problem." And Cameron levels a shotgun at him and says, "Yeah, I figured that would be a problem." And
it's such a badass move. Like
it is. It is.
Like, hey, man, I got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I'm at the end of my rope. I plan on being here tomorrow, so don't fuck with me.
Yeah.
And so then we get this great montage, one of my favorite bits of the movie. We get this great montage of everybody getting ready for the formal. And we get we see chicks, in the shower. We see these dudes drinking beer and brushing their teeth at the same time, playing this music. They're all getting ready. And then they're getting ready on the party bus and they're like, "Far out, dude. Let's go. Far out." Loading onto the bus.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah. And then so she had the headmistress had a dog who got attacked by the creature. So it's missing half of its face. And it walks out in the middle of the street and this bus crashes.
Dude, right before it crashes, the bus driver swerves and then he's headed towards the truck. There's a few frames where they put a mannequin in front, in place of him and made his eyes real big and bulge
the big bulge eyes.
That was weird.
I'm gonna include that in the just so you know.
Yeah. So I think that's a reference to the first Mad Max. That shot's in the first Mad Max if you watch it, when it cuts to his eyes bulge out before the toe cutter bites it. I'm pretty sure that's what the reference was to. So yeah, we get that great shot of the mannequin's bulgy eyes, and then the bus crashes, and the little dog goes in there and affects every single one of them.
Yep.
So that comes into play when the girls are getting ready for the prom. Who shows up first but Detective Cameron and first.
Oh no, yeah.
First of all, the dog goes and.
Not the dog.
The Bradster is out there.
The Bradster.
Yeah, the Bradster's outside, and he's drinking his beer, and he's like, "What a bitch!"
Yep.
And the little dog comes up on him and infects him, shoots one out of its mouth into his mouth, and so the Bradster becomes zombified, and he knocks on the door, and Cynthia goes outside to talk to Brad. She doesn't even look at him. She just grabs his hand and walks out. She's like, "Well, sorry, Brad, it didn't work out." She's like, "I mean, it's not necessarily over forever, but I need time. You were a jerk, blah, blah." She's having this discussion with him, and Chris yells, "Cynthia, get away from him!" And catches him on fire with a flamethrower. Cameron does. Catches him on fire with a flamethrower. And he burns and melts. And he goes inside. He hands Chris the flamethrower, and then he's like, "You take the flamethrower." He has the gun, and he goes through the house, and this girl's like, "Who are you? We're gonna call the cops." He goes, "Good idea. You do that." And then my favorite line of the whole movie happens. The prom dates start showing up, or the formal dates start showing up.
Wait. Before that, so Cynthia is in shock at this point. I love how Chris hands her the gun and he's like, "Here, this will make you feel better."
Yeah, this will make you feel better. Because she has the shotgun.
Yeah.
And Cameron's inside. They start coming. And doesn't he hand her the flamethrower?
He does eventually give her the flamethrower, yeah.
Yeah, but so the zombie dates start appearing, and Cameron looks outside and says my favorite line of the whole movie. He goes, "So girls, I got good news and bad news. The good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead."
Yeah.
I got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
So good.
Cigarette in his mouth.
Yep, you know that's going to make it into the in the final version of this.
Yeah. So then so the zombies start attacking, and we get basically them shooting and catching on fire multiple zombies. One of one of them break through the window and crawl in after Cameron, and he uses his he shoots the guy. The little guys are running. He uses his cigarette and some hairspray as a blowtorch to light him on fire. Then one of the girls get infected, and a bunch of them break in, and he's like they're all surrounding him, and he's reaching for the gun, and he looks up and sees his dead girlfriend, and it gives him the motivation to move forward, and he grabs it, and there's this great 360 shot of him just firing,
mowing people down.
Yeah, and we just cut. We don't know what happens next.
Reference to a later scene.
A crazy 360 shot, because really he's like spinning like out of control, like crazy.
Yeah, it's such a cool shot.
You just see like the walls behind him just going like real fast.
And then he freaking when we cut back to him, he's just he's just sitting upon a pool of dead bodies.
Yeah. He
took all of them out. So
there's a couple of good one-liners in this like last segment.
Yeah, what's one?
Chris is like, duck, it's Miller time.
Oh yeah, it's Miller time. That's a great one.
Or whenever they get chased into the little shed.
Oh, that's my favorite. So they end up getting chased into like the shed.
Here.
They get into the shed, and he says.
He looks around and he's like, "Real good plan."
Yeah, good plan. It's one of my favorites. I laughed out loud when that bit happened. And then when she puts the flamethrower in the zombie's face and catches it on fire at point blank range, and then he's like, he looks at her and she's like shrugs. And then she gets attacked by Zombie Steve.
I was so mad that she wasn't just using that flamethrower like on them.
I know. She's kind of holding it.
And this gives way to another great line when she gets pulled out of the shed and he starts the lawnmower. Yeah. And he was like, "Later, dude."
Yeah, exactly.
Like, get out of the way. Later, dude.
And he runs over Steve in his monobrow with the lawnmower. They were shooting the dead first to make them explode, then using the flamethrower, so that way it would catch the worms on fire.
Right, but if the one time she used the flamethrower directly on the guy's face, his whole head exploded.
It exploded, yeah.
So then they should have just been doing that the whole time.
Probably should have been. The effects in this part, by the way, are awesome. Yeah. There's some great gore effects. There's some great, cool, practical head splits and practical burns. So they go inside and they're like kind of locked up, and they're like, we see the worms start to go underneath, and there's like, what's in the basement? And it's like, because she's like in shock, and she's like, supplies, science project, brains. So they make it down. They're like, get out of the house. Everybody get out of the house. And they go down and they see Cameron already down there with his duct tape over his mouth to keep him from entering his body.
Yep.
And he's spraying him with gasoline. He's like, get out of here. Go ahead and get out of here. And he decides, that he's going to sacrifice himself. So he starts counting.
From 20.
Yeah, and he starts counting down. And so they slowly start to back up. And we see this mass of all of them in the corner. This like gross looking. What do you think of that, Lydia?
Like squiggling all over the place.
Yeah, it was a horde of them.
Yeah. Just such an unsettling picture, isn't it?
Yeah, I wonder. I can't decide how they do, like how they have created this monster, but they almost looked stop motion.
Yeah, in those scenes, I think they were totally stop motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the mask, I think was stop motion for sure.
Which it takes so much
time. And it's such a good effect. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Such a great visual. And so he starts spraying it. They leave the house. They're backing up, and Chris is counting at the same time as Cameron. And when he's backing up, he looks at him and winks, gives him a wink, a smile and a wink, because he's just the most badass of all time. And then they start trying to come at him, and the one jumps up at him, and he grabs it, catches it in midair, and crushes it in his hand.
He says something to it, but I forget what it was.
It's like just so hard-ass. He's just like, bleh.
Yeah.
And then he fucking... They counts down, and he's like, 1. Detective, thrill me. And he lights the lighter, and the whole place goes... They turn into, like, darts and dart at him, and he lights it, and the whole house explodes, taking the horde with it. Such a great hero's death for Detective Cameron. The most impactful.
But it was, and I mean, they set it up for a sequel, it seemed, but I feel a little cheated by the end of it.
Well, I don't, because if you play it to the logical conclusion, either one of two things happen. Either the creature spits so the dog is there, and she turns around to see the dog after kissing Chris, and it spits it, like it spits towards the camera. We end. So either it actually gets into her body, and they either figure out a way to get it out, or they kill her, and it's over, or they kill the dog right then. So they have an ending either way, because that's the last one. So it all ends right there either way.
Lydia, was that the ending that you saw?
No, not at all.
And this is because of we got the unrated version, I think.
Yeah.
What ending are you guys talking about?
When you see the detective walking down the street with a lit cigarette, and he was burned to a crisp.
Yeah.
He falls down, and it bursts open.
Yeah.
Right next to a cemetery, and then you see the lights come down from the spaceship as they're scanning.
Yeah, that's the alternate ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one I saw.
So the theatrical ending is is the dog comes up after they kiss and spits it into, like, she leans down and she's like, "Oh, hi, puppy," and it's that gross dog, and it spits it at her, and we end.
Yeah, that's a better ending, I think.
Yes, it is the better ending. That's
because it was like heartbreaking to know that he got by
those things. Yeah,
by the things, and like, it's like,
even though it does have an end with the spaceship coming down and everything as well.
Yeah,
that they can control. They can get rid of the experiment.
Right.
But and it ties in with the beginning that we didn't get. But yeah, the actual the theatrical ending, so the canon ending, is the dog ending.
Yeah.
Where
I'm glad you saw that, Derek, because if you guys both would have just saw the dog ending, I would have been like, "What is happening?"
So I didn't know which version. I didn't know which version you guys were going to watch. So I watched the theatricals. I was like, "Oh, they're probably going to watch the theatrical because it's probably what's available on streaming services." Because I have both the theatrical and the unrated on my Blu-ray. So I just watched the theatrical, like, this is probably the one they're going to watch. And I've seen both versions multiple times. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had seen this movie not too long ago. I think you and I maybe watched it.
Yeah. I think we watched the theatrical cut, too, when we watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so the director's cut, that's basically the biggest difference. There's some slightly cut gore scenes throughout the theatrical cut. Not a lot, and then there's the whole completely different ending. So, yeah, the better ending is the theatrical ending, in my opinion. So now just picture that ending tacked on to the version you watched, Lydia.
Okay.
And that is Night of the Creeps. So, guys, what are your thoughts on this movie? We'll start with you, Lydia, because this is the first time you've seen this movie.
First time I've seen it. I really loved it. I want more movies like this. And I feel like maybe because I was born in the 90s, I kind of went, like, I watched a lot of 90s horror and then kind of went back in time to, like, the earlier stuff. And I feel like I missed a lot of 80s movies like this, especially. So I think we're going to have to do a lot more, like, 80s movies.
Oh, well, you've come to the right place.
Yeah, that's
our bread and butter right there.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's what Derek and I strive for. I mean, that's the movies we make harken back to some of those days. I mean, they harken back to the 50s, obviously, with some. They harken back to, then they're like modern takes of stuff as well. But You know, the one we're doing now is a throwback to 80s slasher movies and 90s slasher movies. Really, there's some Scream sprinkled into there, some Hatchet, so some 2000 stuff in there. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a fun movie, very fun. Yeah. Derek, you and I grew up watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So was it as good on this watch?
Yeah, no, it was just as good. It was, you know, it had a couple of things that I would have changed. Some of the acting could have been a little bit better. They had some really strong performances from, you know, some great actors in this movie, but you know, I think Chris's character could have done a little bit better in some of the line delivery that took it out for me. But this movie, it's just fun, start to finish. You know, I really enjoyed going back and rewatching it.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment too. There is some weak acting. Bradster's not great, but he's supposed to be deadly, so it works. Some of Chris's lines are a little flat. Some of Cynthia's lines are a little flat. Mm-hmm. Casey's performance is great, and Tom Atkins is like heads and tails above everybody in the performance department. Like he is that guy. You're like, oh yeah, okay, that's who this guy is.
Oh yeah, I think that you know, he and JC really, you know, they made this movie.
Oh, they steal it. Yeah, they sure steal the show. For
sure. Yeah, you know, if I were gonna make any changes, I would have liked Cynthia to be a little bit stronger of a character, especially towards the end.
Well, I mean,
her gentleness in the beginning. I mean, that goes with her character.
They kind of try to pay that off. She does get tougher at the end. I mean, she does take out a horde of undead zombies that burst open with weird worms. But yeah, I mean, so that's her arc. Chris's arc is to learn to stand up for himself, and Cameron's arc is, of course, just retribution. It's redemption. He's on a redemption arc, and I think his arc plays the strongest. It has the best full character arc and feels the strongest.
Mm-hmm. Well, better with the backstory that we got.
Yeah, I would love if I would have done a sequel to this. If this movie would have been a big hit, would have done a sequel to it. I would have somehow made Carpenter's character survive and him, of course, be the hero of the next movie as well. Because I would like to go on more adventures with that guy. That's a fun guy, fun character. So Lydia, let's start with you. What are your pumpkin ratings for this?
Man, I'm struggling over here. Just
go with your heart.
It's up there. I think I'm gonna go with 8.
8 pumpkins. It's a good solid rating. Derek.
You're not gonna like it.
Oh.
I'm gonna give it a 6.5.
What?
Don't get me wrong. I would watch this movie every single year for the rest of my life. It's a really fun movie, but there are a couple of core things that could really put this movie into like that next level. Take it, you know, from the B movie that it was, and I think elevate it a little bit. So it's got some room to improve, but I mean, I really did love watching this movie. It's a good movie. I'm going to say 6.5.
You're going to say that now. You're going to regret it next week, and then you're going to be like, you have to stick with it. You're going to want to rate this a 7.
6.5.
All right. I'm going to give it also an 8. And here's the reason I'm giving it an 8. I agree 100% with your criticisms about certain, acting choices and stuff. But the amount of fun I had watching this movie was just as much fun as I had watching last week's Monster Squad. They're such fun movies, and they put you in such a good mood after you watch them. They have great performances, and I was going to give it a 7, but Tom Atkins raised it a whole pumpkin by himself. Tom Atkins made this an 8.
I thought we were all going to give this a 10 because of Tom Atkins.
Well, so if we're basing it on performance, the Tom Atkins, for the Tom Atkins scale, it gets a 10 for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
What
He
do you
did
think,
amazing.
Derek?
Oh, I think he definitely overperformed.
Would you give it a
in
10 on the
movie.
Atkins scale?
Yeah, I would say he overperformed in this for sure.
Yeah, it was.
Minus that one line, I think his performance for the character he was given was perfect.
Oh yeah,
100%. And then also JC, I think, gave 100% performance for what he set out to do. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So since we can't Atkinize this movie because Tom's already in it, obviously, and there's no other character he could play because he plays the perfect role, we can't Atkinize the movie this week. So, and we just gave it our Atkins rating, which is 10. It gets 10 out of 10 Tom Atkins.
Thrill me.
Thrill me, indeed.
Oh, man.
So, Lydia, it is your turn to pick next week's feature film.
Uh-oh.
What shall it be?
I don't know if you guys are ready for it.
Oh, I'm probably not.
Can
I'm
I
not
guess?
into stuff for it.
Derek, you want to guess?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
I'm going to totally be wrong on this now. I'm going to say Puppet Master 2.
Yes!
Puppet Master 2!
I'm
Hopefully I
ready
didn't
for
cancel my
Puppet
full
Master
moon
2.
subscription.
Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Heck yeah.
All right, I'm excited.
I actually started watching this movie when I subscribed to that for that short period of time. I wasn't able to finish it because of time stuff, but yeah, I'm excited to go back and watch this again.
I did the same thing. I started it and then walked away and did something else. And the beginning
that doesn't bode well for this movie, guys. 2 out of 3 of us started watching this and was like, what's that over there?
Well, because we watched it right before we recorded that episode, so it was like I don't want to just jump straight into the second one, right before I'm about to record for the first one. So I wanted that to be fresh. Yeah. So it was like I put it on, but I wasn't really looking at it.
You confuse it for Puppet Master 3 or 4 or 12.
Yeah.
Lydia, I agree with your choice.
I mean,
good choice.
The beginning was interesting enough to make me pick this movie, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, so we're sticking with the 80s, and we're sticking with, actually it's the 90s, early 90s. This Puppet Master 1 was 1989, so we're in the early 90s.
This is a 90.
Yeah, 1990.
Direct to video.
Well, yeah, there's only one theatrical Puppet Master movie, and it was Puppet Masters.
Awesome.
Even the newest one, the Fangoria one, I got a limited theatrical release. Okay, so yeah, Puppet Masters next week. Puppet Master 2. Dose. So that'll be interesting. We're going back to the Puppet Master well already.
We've got a lot to make it through, so
well, yeah,
it could take us a year.
I said we should do one per month to get us through. It'll take us a year to get through all Puppet Masters. So, one per month. So that's this week's episode, guys. 8 out of 10 pumpkins. 8 out of 10 pumpkins for Lydia. 6.5 out of 10 pumpkins for Simon Cowell.
Simon.
You're like the Gordon Ramsay of our...
That's a compliment, I feel like.
This is just dreadful.
Yeah.
You think everything's dreadful. You come up to Lydia and ask her if she's an idiot sandwich.
I would never.
No, you're too nice to do that.
That's rude. To any human being, that's rude. Someone
when
said
a movie...
that to me, I'd be like...
Yeah. You know when a movie is good or bad, though. Like, you can make a good movie, then you can judge if somebody else is making a good movie.
That's true.
Well, and the thing with this, even though I gave it a low rating, it doesn't mean that I didn't think it was fun and I would watch it again. There's just a couple of areas that they could make changes and I think really improve this movie. It could have been epic. Instead, it was just really good.
All right, guys. That's our show. Be sure to like and subscribe. Ding, ding, ding down there. Share it with all your friends. And remember, if you're going to scream
bloody movies.
That was the slowest thing possible. It was like, my metronome was like, scream bloody movies. And Derek's was like, scream bloody.
All right, let's do it one more time. I got this. You ready?
All right.
Say it fast.
2,
All right.
3. Scream bloody movies. We got it that time. That was pretty good.
Yeah, you were totally slow on that one. That was
perfect. We got it that time.
We're all awful.
Scream bloody movies. See you next week, folks. The end. Blah, blah. I don't know what that is. That's my end. Blah, blah. I turned into some robot. Blah, blah. End of podcast.